Hello! Let's do some turkey work today. So, this one's kind of fun because you get to start on top of your fabric. So you're going to come down. Actually, we're going to come down. Let's say that's going to be our first stitch. We're coming down in the middle of the first stitch. This will make sense in a second. And leave a tail. This tail, it's up to you how long you want this to be. Probably, for my purposes, that's plenty of length here. All right, and I'm going to kind of push it down just so I can see what I'm doing. Now I'm going to actually come up with my first stitch on that line. And I'm going to go, actually I changed my mind. I'm going to have this up. And now I'm going to go down right here. And that secures that floss, okay? Next, I'm going to come back up like under this stitch. If you can get it through the same hole, that's cool. If not, that's cool too. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say, okay, my next stitch is probably going to come up here. So I'm coming down in the center of that next stitch. I'm leaving a loop. Again, I'm probably being excessive with my loops. That's probably plenty long for my purposes. And then I'm going to do another stitch. Now, my book says to come up here and go down here. I think that's hard. So what I tend to do is turn it into a back stitch. So you can think of this as a line of back stitch with little loops coming out of it. So let me show you another thing. Coming up from behind, like I did for this first loop, two things happen. Well, one thing really happens. It directs where my stitch, these loops, it's directing those upwards, right? Because of where I'm putting the floss, basically. And that might be fine. You might want your loops directed in one way. Another option is instead of coming up under like this, you actually split that stitch with your loop. And that's going to kind of direct your loop more up and out from the fabric, right? You can already see it's more three-dimensional from my fabric, okay? See the difference? So it can get a little weird because here when you do this back stitch to tack it down, then you are directing that loop up. Okay, so, but if you don't want it like that, essentially there's like a billion ways to do this, is what I'm trying to say. Probably not in the most, yeah, my brain, it's kind of suffering today, guys. I'm sorry. So here's another way. Instead of doing that loop before this stitch is already out, you can actually make the stitch and then do your loop, splitting both of those base stitches. Split up and then split down. So that will make your turkey work stick out even more. So it depends on what you're doing, right? Like, are you making hair? If you're making hair, you might not want it to stick straight out, right? You might want it more like this first loop I showed where you're actually directing it. You probably don't want to direct it up, right? If you're making like a head of human hair, you probably want to direct it down. So instead of coming up, you'd come down, right? So that's what I'm trying to show. If you pull too tight, your loop's going to go away. So you can always come in here and pull it back out. And you can see I'm holding it with my thumb so it doesn't go anywhere. And then I'll come up and do my loop. like that. So if you do it like that, the only problem is now it's kind of loose here. If you do it in the other way where you finish with a stitch like this, it's going to be secure. Right now it's not secure, right? It's all floppy. So what I would then do is either secure it in the back, or you can add another stitch on top if you want to do it that way. So I'm actually going to just keep moving and do this row. So once you're all the way done, that's when you actually get to cut your loops if you want to do that trimming. And I showed 2 lines here because that's kind of how I like to make mine. When I fill a space, I do it in rows just to kind of keep myself, just so I can keep track of what I'm doing. But I've also used this just randomly, where I'm not really doing rows. I almost just do one little turkey work at a time in like random directions to try to fill in a space. I feel like I should have had one more cup of coffee before this demonstration. So in my book, there's a llama pattern, and the llamas have these amazing bangs made of turkey work like this, left as loops. I think that's super cute. You can also trim. Just remember, go slowly, because if you over trim, it's not going to grow back. Whoops. Pull you back out, buddy. Come on, friend. Here we go. You talk nice to the floss and it does what you tell it. I think you could also do this base using split stitch. I feel like you could just make it up every time exactly how you do it. Whether you're doing back stitches or forward back stitches or split stitches, or if you're doing all the base stitches first and then coming back up with the loops, or as long as they're secure. I mean, see, these ones back here are fine. And remember, this one was all loosey, and then I just went to the next row. So, and even this one's fine already. This will be kind of weird. I've never done like a letter shape before with turkey work. Oops, again, I didn't pull. Here we go. Luckily, T's are pretty simple shapes. So again, use your stitches, those, what do we want to call those? The base stitches, I guess? Use those to direct your loops. I actually did what pattern is that? The Polar Palace pattern. There's a video I have for that on YouTube if you want to see it, where I show a couple different fun things you can do with turkey work. Okay. Like I used it to make a bow, basically. I used these as like the top of the bow and then came out with 2 of these to be the bottom of the bow. Okay. So now I have this loose one at the end, so I need to do something. So I'm going to come in and I'm just going to hide a stitch here to cover that final loop that I did. You can see it's going to direct those loops in that direction a tiny bit. But now when I pull this, it won't come out. So it was successful. And now, oh good, there are scissors nearby. Now the fun part. You just give it a little haircut. Cut my loops. And then kind of decide what look am I going for here? I'm sure, I don't know anyone that hasn't tried to cut their bangs. If you've never tried before, congratulations, and please don't try. But you all know what I'm talking about, where you just, one cut over the line, and instant regret. That does not look like a T. Come on. So, and if you wanted, I mean, there's obviously room in here between my 2 rows. I mean, I could do, I left a space just for simplicity, but you could do a whole nother row in there, right? You could fit another row, and then it'd be even bushier. So have fun with your turkey work. It's obviously used for hair, for fur, for the insides of flowers. It looks all wonky up here, right? You can totally see where I was doing it one way and then I switched to the other way because these ones are popping out towards us and these are going up. So yeah, know which direction you want and stick with it unless this is the look you're going for. Have fun with that one.